a Rutgers Institute of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences video interview. Today we're here with David Bushek, who's the director of the Haskin lab. David, can you tell me a little bit about the history of the lab and this site?
Sure. We've been at this particular site here since 1927. Actually, the Nelsons of Nelson Biology Labs up on campus were the directors of this laboratory back then. And we've been doing research on oysters and shellfish, working with the shellfish industry of New Jersey and along the Atlantic coast since then. And this is a primary site where we breed oysters, the same way you might breed tomatoes or asparagus or something else.
How does your work here interact with kind of, I guess, the shellfish industries? Is that shipping it to restaurants, things like that, or?
So our role in here is to understand how the oysters grow, and how they survive, how they resist different types of diseases that might attack the oysters, and what sorts of ways we can work with the wild fishery and the fishermen that are harvesting the natural populations, as well as with the farmers that are cultivating oysters in containers, protecting them from predators and other things like that.
And have there been any recent trends or things you've been focusing on in particular?
Yeah, so with the oyster fishery, a number of years ago, we changed the mode of the fishery, working with both the state and with the industry, from what we called a seed fishery, which would harvest baby oysters and move them to private grounds to grow up into adults that would be marketed, into a direct market fishery. And the reason we did that was because the disease and the predator impacts on their leases were too high for them to survive. And we worked very closely with them to turn that into a sustainable fishery so that they are sure they're not over-harvesting anything. And in fact, working with them and the programs they have, they're now increasing the abundance of oysters. And for the last 10 years, every year has increased the population of oysters, and as a result, the quota that the fishery gets. Here at this site, we've been breeding oysters since 1960 to be resistant to diseases, the same way you might breed tomatoes or turf grass or something else to be resistant to disease. We work with oysters, and we've developed methods to farm oysters with the industry, and there's now a burgeoning shellfish, oyster, and clam industry in the state, thanks to a lot of the efforts of Rutgers researchers.
Oh wow. Can you talk about, I guess, some of the impacts of that work, of having that industry kind of booming?
Sure. So disease resistance stocks is one of the primary things that we've done, and that has enabled the cultivation of oysters when there has been persistence of disease in the area since the 60s, and a new disease that came in the 90s. We're working with that one as well. But one of the main things that our geneticists did was develop a technology to produce sterile oysters that don't actually reproduce. So we end up with an oyster that's analogous to, say, a seedless grape or a seedless watermelon that doesn't reproduce either. And instead of spending energy on reproduction, it grows faster, doesn't spawn, so it stays plump with firm tissue all year round, and reaches the market size quicker. So the investment that the farmers put in is realized back to them much sooner.
I also wanted to ask about some of the opportunities for students, maybe Rutgers students on the main New Brunswick campus, to come and work here. What kind of opportunities do you have for students or other researchers?
Yeah, so we employ a number of students every year. Most of them from Rutgers come down during the summertime because we're located about 100 miles from New Brunswick on the Delaware Bay. But we have internships throughout the summer. Some of them are 10 weeks long, some of them a little bit longer. We often get a number of recently graduated students that are in the biological or environmental sciences that will come down after they graduate and stay through into the fall to help us with programs. That provides them some wonderful experiences with research in the field. They make connections, and we can help them with their careers, whether they're going on to graduate school or whether they're going to go on to a job or whatnot. And then we, of course, have the interns that come down for these 10-week periods for the summertime. Sometimes we work with them through the Arresti program on campus and continue to work while they go back. Other times they may be finished once they're down here.
Right. Those are most of the questions that I had. Do you have anything you want to add about the station that you think is important?
The station has been here for many years, and we intend to stay here and continue our work. We've been recognized in a couple of publications as one of the most productive laboratories in our field worldwide. We're a small group, but we're fun to work with, and so if you're interested in learning about oysters and shellfish and other things, give us a shout.
All right. Thanks. Thank you for your time. And thank you for watching. This has been a Rutgers Institute of Earth, Ocean, and Atmospheric Sciences video interview.